I'm Ted Chesky, Naturalist Director with Nature Canada. A few years ago, in partnership with the Cree Nation government and others, Nature Canada published a comic book called A Year in the Life of a Red Knot. It tells an engaging story of the endangered Rufa red knot, a robin-sized shorebird that breeds in the Arctic and migrates to the tip of South America and back each year. Now in 6 languages and 3 Cree dialects, it serves as an educational tool about this endangered shorebird and for the Cree to teach their language. We are grateful for the efforts of the Cree communities around James Bay to steward and care for their homelands, including the critical stopover habitat for the Rufa red knot.
Somewhere on Southampton Island, northern Hudson Bay, it's mid-June, and there's a Rufa red knot on its nest. Rufa red knot is an endangered shorebird that nests in the Canadian Arctic. Beneath the incubating mother's belly are 3 eggs. Crack! The mother's startled by the sound beneath her. The chicks emerge from the eggs. The mother is proud. "Honey, come see the cutest chicks in Nunavut," she says. "Wonderful," replies the father. A bit later, the chicks follow their father to a nearby pond. "Now, you have to feed well to grow up," instructs the father. "Look at all these delicious worms and bugs right here," he adds. Over a month later, late July arrives. "Look how tall you are now. It's time for us to go south. Mummy's leaving today." With knots, the female leaves the nesting grounds before the male. The male leaves before the young. The father gives his final instructions. "Eat up all these good bugs. You need it to grow up and to be able to fly." A dangerous, long-tailed Jaeger watches from a distance, thinking, delicious baby birds. But many days later, only one was left. His name is Rufus. Rufus checks his calendar and realizes it's time to migrate. Almost mid-August. Hurry up, it's time to fly away. Ready? Go! Rufus flies non-stop from Southampton Island, landing on the James Bay coast of the Moose Cree First Nation. Rufus is excited to find himself amongst so many shorebirds. Wow! There are so many friends here, he thinks. He looks up. What is that? "Falcon!" cries out someone. The shorebirds all take off at once, forming an evasive cloud to confuse the predator and find safety in numbers. Some fly across James Bay to get away. Several birds land on the shore, including Rufus. Oof! The threat is temporarily gone. "I hope he has gone far, far away," says one of his friends. "Clams! Yum!" says Rufus, distracted by the tasty food. In the distance, 4 people carefully watch the birds through their telescopes. "Look, some red knots," says Sanford. "See any flags?" asks Stephanie. Rufus doesn't notice that people are watching them, but he notices the antenna and the leg flag of his friend. The antenna is connected to a tiny transmitter held onto the bird by a harness. The tiny flag is attached to a small band on the bird's leg. On an island near Rupert Bay, a team of local technicians install antennae on a tower to detect signals from the birds. Gary, one of the technicians, explains. When a bird with a transmitter is nearby, it's detected by the receiver here. Time passes, and the days are getting shorter. Rufus is getting the urge to migrate. Mid-September. It's time to leave, he says to himself. And off they go, flying down south over the ocean, non-stop, all the way to South America. And all that after flying for nearly a week. Rufus lands on the shores of a large natural area on the coast of northern Brazil called Retransius Maranhenses. I'm starving, he declares and starts eating. Mom didn't tell me that traveling is all about feeding, Rufus declares to a new friend, a scarlet ibis. After many days of feeding, Rufus and his friends leave this tropical stopover and flying again and again southward along the coast of Brazil. Rufus sees a familiar landmark his father has told him about. Wow! Rio de Janeiro, Brazil! But where is the beach? He wonders, thinking of the famous Copacabana beach. He flies closer to the shore, then sees the beach but is scared by what he sees. Too crowded a beach for me. I didn't travel that much for this. As well as the people, Rufus notices many dogs that don't look very friendly. A bit past Rio de Janeiro, Rufus found a calmer beach to stop at with a few fishermen who were interested in the little flock of shorebirds on the beach. That's a much better place, Rufus declares as he settles in to feed. The next day he is off again. But we never have time to stay for long. They cannot, because Rufus has to join other birds from all the Americas at Tierra del Fuego, at the southernmost tip of Chile. They are at an area called Bahia Lomas, a nature reserve with more shorebirds than Rufus can count, including thousands of red knots like him. He spots one who he immediately recognizes as a legend amongst birds. Rufus builds up his courage and asks, I don't want to bother you, but are you? Moonbird. That's me, replies Moonbird. Moonbird is a famous and very old red knot. He has flown an equivalent of the distance from the Earth to the Moon and nearly back again. Rufus is clearly starstruck, but Moonbird is humble in his comments. I'm not a hero, just a simple flying knot. Time passes. Weeks, even months. Rufus checks his calendar and realizes that he needs to migrate. Already February. I gotta leave with my friends. Rufus departs, migrating north. Rufus is on the move again, stopping on the coast of southern Brazil in a large protected wetland called Lagoa do Peixe. It's good to be back on sunny beaches, he reflects. Tierra del Fuego was cold and foggy for much of the time he was there. Rufus finds himself with several other red knots, some of them, including him, growing beautiful reddish feathers on their chests. Time going by so quickly. Enough feeding. Time to go home. Rufus looks great with his red feathers, eh? Lots to pack for our 7,000-kilometer non-stop flight to Delaware Bay. Awesome! Hi! Weeks pass, and Rufus and his friends fly across the ocean from South America, landing on the Atlantic coast of the United States. Delaware Bay Beach. I'm starving again. Rufus burns all of his fat reserves flying nonstop for several days. When he arrives on the coast of Delaware Bay, he must eat. He finds himself in a very large flock of shorebirds. Wow, so many birds! Look, horseshoe crabs! Let's search for eggs. Yum! Rufus stuffs himself full of a meal of horseshoe crab eggs. After a few days, he and his friends are feeding and pow! A net flies over their heads, catching many of them in its mesh. They struggle to try and free themselves and complain. Ouch! That's my leg! You put your wing in my eye! Is this the end? Human researchers carefully remove the birds from the nets and start processing them for banding and placing transmitters on some of their backs. Easy bird. No one is going to hurt you. Banding, weighing, measuring. Rufus finds himself with a flag and a transmitter, like Moonbird, and suddenly sees himself as a superhero. Hey, I have bands like Moonbird. Rufus leaves Delaware Bay heading north. Here I come. New York City, James Bay, Southampton Island, Nunavut. What a long trip. Home sweet home. Rufus has completed a year of his life and is back to his place of birth.